Welcome to the Filmsteins, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level. Where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmsteins, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience.
All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmsteins. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my running friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
Remember, you can join us every Monday and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmsteins, and every other Wednesday on patreon.com/Filmsteins for Patreon exclusive episodes, like our recent exclusive episode where we ranked the Saw films. Some other recent episodes include Twisters, Deadpool and Wolverine, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and Back to the Future. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe. For $1, come request a movie. Go rate us on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at HempvilleCBD.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we will be talking about Robert Zemeckis' 1994 film, Forrest Gump. We've all seen Forrest Gump. We recently watched it, and I'm happy to report back that it's a very good movie. It's a little overrated.
You're overrated.
There's a lot in Forrest Gump I like. I like the dream-like approach of telling the story with Gump sitting on the bench waiting for a bus, I guess. I don't know what he's really doing there. I feel like all the buses probably went by at that point.
He's waiting for the number 9.
Oh, that's right. He says it.
Yeah.
I really like, at least in premise, this kind of dualistic story, parallel story with Gump and Jenny. Gump is great in sports. He goes to college. He joins the war. He starts a business. He invests in mega corporations. And Jenny becomes a stripper. And then
Jenny doesn't become a stripper, per se.
she gets involved in the hippies, the Black Panthers. She projects her problems on everyone else. You know, like telling our boy here that he doesn't know what love is. Bitch, you don't know what love is. Try loving yourself for a change. I don't like Jenny. Go ahead and tell you right now. I love the parallel stories, though. I wish we could have gotten more out of Jenny in a similar way. How all these things moved through Forrest Gump. He affected these people's lives. He lived through really crazy situations. We get that tangentially through Jenny, and I enjoy some of that. I just wish we maybe got a little bit more of that, or just way less. I feel like there was a misbalance in that, and we should have stuck with one or the other. But all in all, I'm very pleased to say I like Forrest Gump, like everyone else. It's a very universally loved film, I believe. But I have never met someone who loves Forrest Gump as much as you. You've written books and essays and reached out to Tom Hanks about how good his performance was. What did you think of Forrest Gump in 2024? Maybe the 20th time you watched it.
Yeah, it's no secret. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I wasn't scared to rewatch it at all. I wasn't worried that I was going to lose my love for it. Because even as a child, I could see this movie was awesome. Something I'd never seen. This movie is so heartwarming and captivating and enriching. This movie is perfect in my book.
A perfect movie.
Perfect movie. Although I'm quick to say a movie's perfect more than you are. Let's throw that out there.
That's fair. That's fair. I gotta know I gotta remember who I'm talking to.
Yes, remember who you're talking to. I could really watch this movie over and over and not get bored. Forrest is such an iconic character. He's a simple man and has a really straightforward view of life. He has these morals and values that resonate with me, and the movie expresses them wonderfully. He's loyal and devoted, a little too devoted, but that's fine. He knows a bit or two about honesty, almost in the frankness route, a little too simple, but also fine with me. He's infectious. He shows us you don't need to be a genius to live a meaningful and impactful life, and that it's okay to be different. I think Tom Hanks did a phenomenal job with his character and gave this character the love it needed to bring it to life. The plot of the movie does a fantastic job of weaving these historical periods while still maintaining a focus on some real emotional themes like love, abuse, innocence, and the human spirit, while still sprinkling in lots of humor and this very unique perspective on life. Because this movie is hilarious. This movie cracks me up. All the jokes make me laugh every single time. The pacing of the film is great. I'm not complaining at all for 2 hours and 22 minutes. The writing of the film is very different from the source material, but I'm not mad at it whatsoever. Eric Roth, who wrote the film, did an amazing job on the screenplay, adapting it from the source material. And although the book and the movie are very different, they're both these wild stories of Forrest Gump's life with his very straightforward approach to life. The movie has some great one-liners that will always be remembered. The editing and the VFX were awesome. I didn't know half the things that were in the movie were visual effects, because who knew Gary Sinise actually had both his legs? The performances were great. Everything about this movie is great. It's an iconic movie, and I believe everyone needs to watch it, which I believe most people have, but this new generation definitely needs to watch it.
I kind of get the impression that we have a little bit of like a Jaws syndrome happening here. I'm going to coin that right now. In that I think people were surprised to hear that Jaws originates from a book.
Oh, I was super surprised.
I think a lot of people would be equally surprised that Forrest Gump originates from a book too.
I was surprised.
I'm still surprised.
2 for 2.
So I'm kind of wondering, is there a proper companion piece in the film? Does it elevate the pair, or can you clearly see, like Jaws, where they cherry-picked certain ideas and ran with a tighter theme or a more narrow vision?
No, definitely. The book is more of an inspiration than anything else. Jaws felt like it was, like you said so well, very narrow and just focused on the shark and the vacationers. Whereas in the book, we now know that there's actually love triangles and cheating and all these other things that are not in the film. The book, Forrest Gump, is more like an idiot savant. He's really, really smart in certain topics, like math. He's actually really good at math and really good at chess. While the movie Forrest is more naive and he's not smart in anything, he's just straightforward, and his straightforwardness leads him along this path.
Yeah, he's kind of lucky.
I don't think he's kind of lucky. I just think that he doesn't overcomplicate things like so many people tend to do and get in their own heads about things. He just does it. It is what it is, and he's going to do it. But the book Forrest is a little bit more raunchy. He likes to have sex. He does hook up with Jenny, and she falls in love with him, but then cheats on her. So he's not this hero that we have in the movie. He's a little bit more human, making mistakes and all these things, because our Forrest here doesn't make mistakes. He's very optimistic and very positive. But Jenny's character is very similar to the film, but we don't have a lot of her. We don't know what she does when Forrest and her get separated. So we had kind of filled in the blanks in the movie with what she could have done. And Lieutenant Dan is a very different character. So I feel like we picked bits and pieces of each of these characters and gave them a different life and focused it more in these American historical events. Because in the book, Forrest, yes, he plays football and goes to the war, but we don't focus on the American side of it like we do in the movie. Or at least maybe it's something that once you put on TV, it suddenly becomes more patriotic than a book because now you have all these visuals. So I don't know. But the movie and the book have completely different endings. I think you'd like the book ending more than because of how you like unhappily ever after endings. Forrest ends up a bachelor with Lieutenant Dan and an orangutan, and Jenny finds somebody, redeems herself, and has a kid. So it's definitely an inspiration than a recreation.
Yeah, it sounds like the movie may have come with some more intended vision and messaging, and the book being much more of a drama-filled epic.
Yeah.
Delivered maybe in a similar way of just these vignettes of his life, like a lot of epics are. So we have this character that doesn't do much. He doesn't largely think. The universe just kind of happens through him, makes for good storytelling, but it does offer us a really strange movie, just in general, where we have a character that doesn't learn anything. He doesn't grow. He's more or less kind of figured out. He's a really positive, helpful, loving person, so okay, doesn't really matter, does it? There's maybe even this challenge on the free will and how those who oppose it are challenged by the universe. And so we have these characters who are, much more human than Forrest, taking parts of Forrest's ideology and becoming inspired, finding peace within themselves. While on the other side, with Jenny, we have this individual and the people she surrounds herself with, protesters, activists, movements, invested in changing the status quo, not allowing the universe to just continue as we know it. What do you think of this structure and its potential of storytelling, and is there a opposing ideology of free will and the lack thereof?
I like the structure of the plot a lot because we tend to care for Forrest. We see him grow up. We see not only how much his mom loves him, but everyone around him. Even Jenny loves him. And I love how infectious he is. Whether he has free will or not, I'm not sure. He does tend to just go along for the ride. He tends to just say yes to whatever is handed to him and take these opportunities that are presented to him. He's not scared. He just does. And his whole attitude shifts the entire United States, from showing Elvis how to dance to handing a black girl her notebook. He's in these scenarios acting like the gentleman he is, or acting like the honest person he is. If a girl dropped her notebook, of course you're just going to pick it up and hand it to her. Race doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. Color doesn't matter. He just is going to do the right thing. So that on itself, I don't know if it's having free will. Doing the right thing is doing the right thing. Whereas Jenny thinks she's doing the right thing, but is she really? She's involved in all these activist groups and protests and whatnot. But that's just making things more complicated, that you have to create a group. You have to create some kind of organized event to help somebody do something, when you have something so as simple as picking something up for somebody no matter what. Doing the right thing no matter what.
Yeah, it's almost a slap to the face to the supremely organized activist protests when you have some random idiot on live TV by helping one of the new black students by picking up her notebook and inspiring people. It's silly, but it's kind of a funny slap to the face to the effort that Jenny and her posse of activists are participating in.
Yeah. And this movie is also big on this unpredictability of life. You don't know where life is going to take you. You know, that's his iconic thing.
That's the theme of the movie.
Yeah. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. We have Forrest, Jenny, Lieutenant Dan, even his mom. We have these stories that are being told with completely different lives. And we have the development of these stories within Forrest and his shenanigans, that we're just here to experience life with all these people, and at the same time learn from Forrest and his innocence. I love this idea, and I think you said it, that Forrest doesn't grow as a person. He maintains to stay the same from when he was little to when he's a grown-ass dad. But everyone around him grows. And there's this beautiful thing about ignorance is bliss, and how just being simple-minded in the sense of not depressed or anxiety ridden or letting your trauma affect you, that lets you lead the life he's led. Because yes, Jenny is a bitch, but she's a deeply flawed character. She's struggling from her childhood trauma. She was abused by her dad and hasn't coped. She's not evil, but she's very self-destructive.
She's spreading evils.
Is she spreading evils?
We don't get a lot out of Jenny, but the little we do indicates to me that she's at the very least spreading evils through her self-destruction in laissez-faire alignment of not having any values. She's not taking the time to reflect and deal with this trauma, this unfortunate trauma. No one can take that away from her. But she can't be a victim forever.
But she's not. She has her own redemption story.
She does, but it takes way too long.
That's not unrealistic.
That's fair.
There's grown-ass people who still haven't let go of their trauma.
Absolutely. But it makes her a piece of shit.
She spends the entire film searching for who she is.
Through other people's problems.
Through men.
Through the country's problems. And men.
Because she thinks she's trying to find out who she is, but she's just trying to escape her past. She's not working through her problems whatsoever. She doesn't want to.
Yeah. And when she told Forrest that Forrest doesn't know what love is.
Yeah, that hit. That hurt. But then when Forrest says, I do know what love is, it slaps her in the fucking face.
It does.
And she leaves. And she goes and thinks about that. And then has her own redemption years later. But hey, at least she did. At least she took that time. Did Forrest deserve better than Jenny throughout his years? Yeah, he did. But Forrest is a devoted man. Whether it's good for him or not, he's loyal. But apart from Jenny's story, Lieutenant Dan's story always disturbed me as a child. And now as an adult, I get it a little bit more. Lieutenant Dan is robbed from his heroic death that has been in his family. He had to die in the war with his men and instead gets saved by Forrest, and he loses that. But not only that, he loses his legs. He loses a lot of his dignity. And I guess as a kid, I didn't understand that's something you could lose. As a kid, I just thought, man, aren't you just glad you're alive? Aren't you glad you got saved? But he actually has this whole story that leaves him so angry and bitter that watching it years later gives me a whole different perspective on that. Because when he meets Forrest, Forrest pulls him out of that. And
even though all his interactions with Lieutenant Dan are probably some of my favorite, and they're hilarious, but just something about having a friend helping you work out through your issues, he probably has the best redemption story in this movie. And it's so symbolic too, with him just making as simple of a decision as going from no legs to getting prosthetic legs. It just breaks me. And he finds a wife or a fiance, I don't know, girlfriend, whatever she was. And he learned to move away from his anger and his bitterness just by watching somebody be there for him. And it saddens me because I'm sure the Vietnam War, left so many people like him in this position.
Sure, he's the poster child.
Yeah. And there's a line in the book that I really like in regard to Lieutenant Dan. He's showing Forrest. He's homeless in a park, and then he's showing Forrest all his medals. And he says, "They remind me of something. The war, of course, but that's just part of it. I have suffered a loss far greater than my legs. It's my spirit and my soul. There's only blank now. Medals are here where my soul used to be." But the book doesn't give him a redemption story, and we just leave him how he is. Which, that's way worse, because that's probably how many of these men that fought in that war were left. They didn't get the redemption story Lieutenant Dan got. So I love it. I love that the film just retained so much positivity and optimism.
Yeah, I really like the order of operations with Dan. He, like Jenny, is tormented by obvious trauma. He's an example of the effects of war. And I love that his restoration came before getting his legs. It's cool that, Forrest showed back up in his life, was like, happy to see him.
Yeah.
Has anyone been happy to see Lieutenant Dan in the last 15, 20 years?
No.
And I specifically love that he needed that restoration before getting his legs, because getting those legs first would have been meaningless without spirit to want to walk anymore.
Yeah. No, that's very well said.
Yeah, I guess another slap to the face to these organizations that are trying to bring so-called peace and equality and cooperation and communication across all, social demographics and nationalities. We also see Forrest go to China to play ping pong. So there's kind of a similar thing, like him helping that girl pick up her binder or whatever.
He brings the world together.
And then, of course, the race, or the marathon. I don't even know. Him running back and forth across the country.
Yeah, that's just a mental health run, I guess. After Jenny leaves, he's like, I gotta go run.
When you're so stupid, that's what it takes. Most people only need to run a mile or two, but Forrest had to run
across
several
country.
thousand. Yeah. So, especially in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I feel like Forrest Gump, the movie, has been deemed a conservative Republican movie. I've always been curious why. I still don't understand why. But I like this, what this person says here on the wiki. Forrest Gump is part of the top 100 conservative movies of all time. That's funny. And in the National Review Journal, John Miller wrote, Tom Hanks plays the title character, an amiable dunce who is far too smart to embrace the lethal values of the 1960s. The love of his life, wonderfully played by Robin Wright Penn, chooses a different path. She becomes a drug-addled hippie with disastrous results. End quote. That sort of is the through line of the movie, yeah, sure.
Did you not watch the movie?
But I guess I asked this question because it's quoted on Wikipedia under it being under its conservative controversy. What in that premise makes this a conservative movie, though. Because conservatives also do drugs. I mean, sure, yeah, because they were this mass movement that opposed the government and whatever. What do you think about the conservative labeling of Forrest Gump?
That's silly. That's very silly. I don't understand. If they're using conservative as holding traditional values, then sure. These values like hard work, loyalty,
Going to war?
is it
Starting a business?
patriotic?
Is this movie patriotic?
I don't know.
Is being into football, going to college, going to war, starting a business, investing, is that patriotism? Is that American patriotism?
I think it might be. Then I must be conservative.
That's you.
That's me.
You played football.
I played
You went to
football.
college.
I went to
You
college.
joined the military.
Yeah, I completely don't understand if it's because if it's because we are talking about these things. I mean, it's very obvious that these are American things that happen throughout history and pretty much everywhere else. There's other countries that also have universities and play sports and join the military. So I don't understand the conservative tag.
One thing that really stood out in this film was all of the shootings. We had president candidates getting shot, not always dying, and then John F. K. And it's just like, first of all, I didn't know this happened this often.
See, enriching movie.
But every time that popped up, I was just like, what is going on in America?
Yeah, that's crazy times in the US, for sure. I wonder when it stopped. What, the 80s? We calmed down with that stuff? 90s? I don't know.
I don't know. I think it might be
not today.
Accelerating, yeah.
Oh, accelerating? You think presidents are getting shot now?
No, but the social kind of turmoil, I guess. Presidents are getting shot at, I guess.
Is this movie overly sentimental? Is there too much emotion?
In what way? With the characters? Like Lieutenant Dan, or the audience?
The audience. Is it manipulative?
A little bit. I don't think there's a sentimental attraction pull out of this movie almost at all. Anything between Forrest and Jenny is totally manipulative because of her terribleness and inability to grow up.
I don't understand why you're hating on Jenny so much.
Fuck Jenny.
When there's so many people out there like this.
Well, fuck those people.
They need help.
They do need help. Don't fuck them in the sense that we forget about them. They can't get help, though, without helping themselves. They can only be met halfway. We can't throw them in institutions like we used to. I think, obviously, the Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump dynamic is the fundamental relationship in this movie. And I don't know, maybe there's just not enough of it to get anything out of me, because your imagination really needs to fill in the blanks for what Lieutenant Dan has been going through for the last 15 years or whatever, which isn't too hard to imagine.
No, I think we get very explicit images of what he's been going through. Especially when he's sliding down in the ice on his wheelchair.
Yeah, but the relationship is still not really there. It may be a fault of just how fast we move through the film. How long were we in Vietnam with Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan? They may have been there for a few years. We were there for 20 minutes. And most of that was not between Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that epic kind of thing getting in my way, where we spend 10 minutes crossing, 15,000 miles. It's just like, all right, cool. So I don't know what that is in me. That's a hurdle that I have to get over.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what that is because I was a crybaby during this movie. Especially this time around watching it. It got me. These bullying moments, these abuse moments,
watching Forrest struggle to make friends.
Yeah, it's almost like the dreamlike structure of telling us these snippets of his life kind of get in the way of meaningful storytelling to me as far as the characters go, and I just see the parallels. I just see the abstractions of what things are kind of represented as. So I don't have any connection to Forrest, and especially anyone else that he comes across, because it's so fast.
Yeah, I guess it is a movie you have to think about. You have to put yourself in Forrest's shoes and feel the lines, read between the lines. I don't know about you, but I thought the humor in this movie was very funny. I liked that roommate scene when she sneaks him in and she basically pleasures him. I don't know how you would describe that. But Jenny's roommate is there listening to everything that's going on with her face, like by the wall. That was hilarious. And in that same sequence, we have when Forrest punches the guy out of the car because he thinks that Jenny's getting hurt. But she's not getting hurt. She's, having sex in there. That's hilarious. Also, like the sign that they have when he's playing football that says "Stop, Forrest," because he doesn't really know how to play football. He just knows he has to grab the ball and run as fast as he can and keep running. They forgot to tell him that he can stop at a certain point, which is, oh my god, that's hilarious. And one of my favorite lines is when Lieutenant Dan asks him, "Have you found Jesus yet, Gump?" And he says, "I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for him, sir." It's funny.
Yeah, watching this movie and Back to the Future right before this, maybe older movies are funnier. Maybe everybody's right that comedy is dead in today's films.
Did you not just see Deadpool and Wolverine like I did?
Exactly. But my favorite line in Forrest Gump is when Forrest says, quote, "My mama always said you could tell a lot about a person by their shoes, where they going, where they been," end quote. That's funny and genius. I challenge you to find one funny and genius line in Deadpool and Wolverine.
When he asks him if he's retired.
Retarded. You're right.
Genius.
You're right.
Genius. That's a good one. Thinking about that line made me think of the shoes everyone's wearing today and how that's just not applicable anymore. Because everyone's either wearing Nikes, Crocs. I guess Converse are Nikes. So, you can't tell a lot about a person anymore because everyone's wearing the same freaking shoes.
Yeah, now maybe you can tell by people's cars where they've been and whatnot.
This movie definitely has a lot of quotable dialogue. Run, Forrest, run.
Why is that the most iconic scene?
That's the most iconic scene. And it's not even when he's older, because I guess it happens twice. It's when he's younger. And when young Jenny's saying it. Maybe it's because it's the moment that Forrest has something happen to him that favors him. Breaking out of these leg braces, running away from the bullies. Everything's in slow-mo. We're focusing on him. It's a magnificent scene. I also like this blend of narration with the dialogue, similar to what we had in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where he would say the line and then the character would start out their dialogue with that line. Like when Forrest is narrating about Bubba's mom and how she cooked shrimp and then her mom cooked shrimp and so on. As the narrator, he says, Bubba and his family knew everything there is to know about the shrimp business. And then it cuts to Bubba saying, I know everything there is to know about the shrimping business. And there's several instances where this happens. And I like it. I don't see it happen too often. There's something almost meta about that I really like, and comical.
Yeah, the narration is really cool actually because it helps put the film into perspective for one, because it doesn't feel like the 1950s or 60s or 70s. There is this kind of gentrification of what you might expect, and that's because we have this idiot interpreting this world.
Yeah. Also, like that when we saw this movie, we didn't need subtitles, which I thought was hilarious because my hillbilly ass understood everything they were saying.
He's just a normal Southern man
He's
down
just-
here.
Yeah. Even Bubba, I could understand everything he said.
That's hilarious. I was thinking about that myself, and it made me think, are older movies just easier to understand? Because Back to the Future, I felt similar.
I don't know how older you want to go, because To Kill a Mockingbird, I couldn't
Mhm.
understand anything they said, and I believe that's from the South, unless they had actors not from the South portraying a Southern accent, and maybe that's what I got lost on. But yeah, Back to the Future, Karate Kid, I understand all those movies.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I will say one funny thing my ears kind of perked up on was every time Tom Hanks yelled, every time Forrest yelled, all I could hear was Woody. Because Woody's kind of yelling throughout all the Toy Stories.
That's true. That's funny. I didn't hear Woody one bit. And you said it at one point while we were watching it, and I still didn't see it. My favorite scene in the entire film is the Watergate scandal scene. It's so brief. It's hilarious. I don't know why it's my favorite scene, besides just the absurdness of it. Because nothing really happens as far as visuals or dialogue or anything actually crazy. But I just love this scene. It's so creative.
It's so weird because Nixon's like, hey, I got a place you can stay in. And then he sees people across the way. And he's like, there's some folks in it with flashlights.
Lights are bothering me. I can't go to sleep. Will you take care of it?
It's so bizarre.
And then you see the zoom in on the Watergate hotel on the notepad, and that's it. It's almost like a if you know, you know moment.
Yeah, it's just like the Elvis scene where he teaches Elvis to dance.
But I feel like more people know Elvis
Oh, I mean, for sure.
than the Watergate scandal.
But it's real quick, and
But it is real quick, yes.
I guess we do get a little bit more of a delivery on that because we see the setup where young Forrest is teaching Elvis, and then his mom and him are walking by some TVs, and we see Elvis dancing on TV. And we're like, oh man, Forrest taught him to dance.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of delivery on that.
Well, I think after we see the consequences of Nixon and him giving that speech about his resignation, but it's almost like they put in a fast one. I don't know. I don't know what about it, but it kills me every single time I watch it. It just kills me that Forrest Gump is the one that snitched on those burglars. There's so many too. I don't know. I just love them. I love all these nods with him helping coin the phrase "the shit happens," or that yellow smiley face. That's him. That's Forrest Gump did that.
Have you ever been to Bubba Gump seafood?
I have not, but I want to. I definitely want to. There's one at Universal Studios. I want to go every single time. Maybe it'll happen.
How many people go in there and bring up Forrest Gump?
I hope a lot of people. Because yes, Jenny and Dan are important to the story. But Forrest and Bubba have this dream. And it's just so iconic. And probably Bubba's sequence where he's saying boiled shrimp and Cajun shrimp. I don't know what all he names off.
Fried shrimp,
Fried
coconut shrimp,
yes.
shrimp sandwich.
Yes. Is one of the most iconic scenes next to Run, Forrest, Run. So how can you not go into that restaurant and think Bubba Gump? Which that restaurant was founded like 2 years after this movie came out, which is freaking crazy. It's based off this movie, if people didn't know. And it came out like 2 years after it, which is crazy. I didn't know that. I thought it was years later that someone got the crazy idea to take this idea from the movie and turn it into a restaurant. Which, to be fair, I had only seen Bubba Gump at Universal Studios. And I thought it was just a little thing that they did there. Because you know how they do all these worlds and all these set pieces from films.
Yeah, like Krusty's Burgers.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's fair. And there aren't very many locations. There's only 35 Bubba Gumps out there in the world. So that checks out a little bit.
Yeah, but then it's in City Walk. It's not inside the parks. So that kind of makes it like, I don't know what's going on here.
That's funny. I didn't know Bubba Gump was a real restaurant, but I had seen Bubba Gump out in the wild, and I just didn't make that connection until the most recent time we watched this film.
I also want to give a shout out to the visual effects team. Superimposing Gump in all these historical events looks so realistic that I didn't know if they got someone that looked like the president to do this scene with Tom Hanks or what. But looking into it, those are actual scenes, actual moments in history that they just superimposed Tom Hanks. The feather sequence at the beginning was also a big part of the VFX because the feather falling down was shot behind a blue screen, and then they shot the sky and then superimposed it. The feather by Gump's shoe was CG'd on there. Not sure why. Maybe to make it all blend, I don't know. But then when he picks up the feather, they had to get a real feather so he could pick it up. Which is just crazy to me how that much work went into a feather falling. And there's so many special effects that went into this film. The crowd in front of the Lincoln Memorial, that scene where he gives that big speech and then him and Jenny run across to each other. And there's a massive crowd there. It's really a tiny crowd that they filmed in front of him and then on the side, and then they made them move like 20 feet and then another 20 feet and just kind of walked them around in that rectangle and superimposed everything to make it look like a giant crowd, which that's cool. That's awesome. The scene where he's running from the car and he's being chased, that's also shot in 2 different sections. That makes sense. Unless he was really getting chased by a car, but that seems like what a stunt double would do. Which, by the way, was a stunt double that jumped over the fence, not Tom Hanks, which you said it was Tom Hanks.
I said it might be because, he was
young
30 years ago. I could see a Tom Hanks doing that in his 30s.
Was not Tom Hanks. And then, of course, when he's carrying Bubba from...
yeah.
Bubba's, like, tied to this wire, and they're kind of carrying him while Tom Hanks is just kind of holding him because, of course, he can't lift him. Bubba's a big guy. Which, that's funny. Tom Hanks' stunt double is running with Bubba's stunt double, and then he trips, and when he trips, then it's the real Tom Hanks running with a wired Bubba. And that's just crazy, and there's so many more in that war sequence with the explosions and people getting killed and whatnot, that I was just amazed by the amount of work that went into this very small sequence. I mean, we, like you said earlier, we don't spend a lot of time here.
That's pretty crazy. The archival footage is obviously manipulated, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of overt special effects.
Right.
And it's used wonderfully.
Yes. The score is amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. We have the feather theme in the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, and sprinkled in between the middle of the movie. We have these great hits from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. From Elvis to Aretha Franklin to the Sweet Home Alabama song. I don't know who sings that. Didn't pay too much attention to the sound design, but I'm sure it was great if it blended so effortlessly. All the props in Vietnam were cool. I like how they had the toothbrushes and the toothpastes on their helmets. I don't know if you noticed that, but that was a nice little detail. The whole area looked so rough and rugged. It didn't quite look as dirty as some of the war movies we've seen, but that's fine. This is not a war movie.
It was through the eyes of Forrest Gump, too.
That's also fair. Our point of view matters a lot.
Yeah, when we get that narration lens, it throws any kind of sense of realism, I think, out the door.
Yeah, it skews everything, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair point. But I love the Vietnam sequences visually. I also like all of Forrest's uniforms. He looks real spiffy. How did you feel about the ending of the movie with Forrest learning he has a little Forrest?
What's just the American dream, right? He loves football, went to college, went to war, ends up with a family or a kid, family for a little bit, and then Jenny dies of something, AIDS, I don't know, some shit.
Yeah, there's some rumors out there that it's hepatitis C, some rumors saying it's AIDS, HIV, but it's something she caught out there, dilly-dallying, who knows what, where, when, how, why. It's very cute. It's a very nice cyclical thing, and it breaks my heart when Forrest is asking if little Forrest is like him or if he's normal. And that's one of the few times we see him cry. One of the few times we see him actually be concerned about anything, because he's very laissez-faire, like, let's go. Come on, what's life about to throw at me? I'm down with it. Just say yes. But we have this pivotal moment where he learns that he could be passing down this dumbness, which is sad. It's so very sad, because lots of people are passing down dumbness. He shouldn't be concerned about that. But no, his kid's normal. He's great. He's apparently the kid from The Sixth Sense, which was funny. I didn't know that. I didn't pay attention, I guess. And then Jenny dies. They get married. Jenny dies. And he's broken.
The real question is, did that kid get Forrest Gump's niceness?
Yes. I think so. And we see that when he's sitting down with him and they both kind of cock their head. And even though they might not be intellectually the same, he's going to have the same spirit that his dad does.
Is his mother's problem of addiction gonna live with him?
Yeah, I don't know about that. When did she redeem herself, you know? I guess, was it right after she had sex with Forrest and then ran off? Is that when she started changing her life around? I'd like to believe so. I'd like to believe this is the type of movie where that is when Jenny realized, I need to do something about this. Or was it, 3 months down when she went to a health clinic and it's like, hey, you're pregnant. Did you know you're pregnant? Oh, shit. Okay, let me change now.
Jenny's also kind of a slap to the face of the whole organized change and activist kind of thing, because she's in a position in her life where she should not be participating in social change in any form. Right? And maybe there's a funny joke here saying that those people, those activists, are mentally unwell.
Is that where the conservative...
Maybe. And just with some time, you will grow out of it. It's a phase.
You know what? I'm not going to tell you that sounds ridiculous, because it doesn't.
Maybe there's something to that.
Maybe there's something to that. That's just how things happen down here in the South.
Well, man, thank you for watching Forrest Gump with me and talking about it here today.
You're welcome. Let's watch it again.
Round 2.
22.
Do you have a budget guess?
This was a really, really hard budget to guess. From Back to the Future, I know this guy knows how to spend money. At least he knows how to budget money. So I don't want to go too high, but knowing there was a lot of work into the visual effects made me go a little bit on the higher side. So I am going to go with 50 mil.
It says here that it was $55 million.
Oh,
so
right on the almost money.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there.
And it went on to make $678 million.
Holy crap. With Back to the Future in this movie, this dude's rich. Good job, Robert.
And over on Letterboxd with 3.36 million people.
Whoa.
They weighed in at a 4.1.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm giving this a 4.5. Don't know what keeps it from being a 5. Maybe I didn't have my monster. I didn't have my destruction. But I don't think I would give it a 5.
So I've been bouncing between a 2.5 and a 3
Oh my god, I'm
for
done.
so many
I'm done.
years
Finish this by yourself.
with Forrest Gump. It is my most indecisive score. So there it is, folks. But yeah, thank you for talking about this movie here today, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmsteins. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday and Friday with brand new episodes of The Filmsteins, and every other Wednesday on patreon.com/Filmsteins for Patreon-exclusive episodes, like our recent Patreon-exclusive episode, where we ranked the Saw films. Our next episode will be on M. Night Shyamalan's new outing, Trap. I'm very much looking forward to that.
I'm excited for that one. I'm very excited. I'm a big M. Night fan. Super excited.
Please look forward to that, and remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe, come request a movie, go rate us on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmsteins. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon, at patreon.com/Filmsteins. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmsteins, signing off.